Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting and Committee of the Whole meeting. The City Council meeting is called to order. We kindly ask our City Clerk to please take the roll call.
Bruno.
Here.
Burkhart.
Here.
Clements.
Here.
Ruby.
Here.
Haven.
Here.
Kilberg.
Here.
Maladra.
Here.
Marks.
Here.
McGowan.
Here.
Swanson.
Here. Ladies and gentlemen, Alderman Kilberg is calling in by phone tonight, which is permitted to do so under three conditions. Number one, he's either traveling on business, he's either homesick, or he's home taking care of someone sick. He is traveling on business this evening. When Alderman Kilberg's name is called, he will identify himself and either provide comments and/or identify himself and provide his vote. With that, we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. We have three young folks with us tonight. One gentleman from Geneva High School, a senior, earning his citizenship badge, and two ladies from Rosary High School who have to be here because of government class. Ladies and sir, would you kindly lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. And for those of you tuning in at home, and perhaps those of you new to the audience, this gentleman to my left is Chuck Radovich. Chuck, just for the benefit of everyone tuning in, how many years as city attorney?
When did he get his law degree? About the same time. In the 44th year.
Is that something? Chuck
I
actually.
graduated from law school at 15, Mayor.
Did you really? 1815, was that nice? Well, we're glad to see you, man.
Thank you.
City Council meeting, folks. Item 3, new business and public comment. Anyone here this evening for any questions or comments, either of the entire body or for anyone in particular? Any thoughts they'd like to share before we jump into the agenda? Very well. We move on to the agenda, folks. Item 4, public hearings, special items and presentations. Tonight we have the pleasure of a presentation in the 2020 U.S. Census. We have with us the chairwoman of the Strategic Plan Advisory Committee, Jill Johnson. And at the podium as well is our Assistant City Administrator, Ben McCready.
Thank you for the kind words. It's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. I appreciate the introduction. So, again, I'm Ben McCready, Assistant City Administrator, Director of Administrative Services, and in some of my other duties, I also serve as the liaison to the City's Strategic Plan Advisory Committee, where I get to work with our Chairwoman, Jill Johnson. So tonight here, we have a few brief comments, brief presentation we'd like to make about a topic that's very important, not just to our community, but to our state and the nation. Topic, of course, is the 2020 census. In the next few weeks, activity from the city and from our community partners and from the state's Complete Count Committee and others will start to ramp up to help make the public aware of the importance of a complete and accurate count in 2020. And because of that, we wanted to set aside a little bit of time here to make you aware of some of the local efforts going on to help ensure that count is complete and accurate tonight. Jill?
Well, thank you guys all for having us, and Mayor and City Council. This has been something we've been working on for several months, so it's nice to kind of see everything come together. Over the past 3-4 months, we've attended several regional meetings, government meetings, had been on several webinars, so we've been getting as much information and feedback as we possibly can from surrounding towns. I know a lot of people are familiar with the census, but for your benefit, just so you know, more than $675 billion of funding are at stake. So this is why we need the data. This is why it's so important for the data for agencies, schools, businesses, and for the city's plans for the future. More than that, it's critical for the budgeting purposes, for housing programs, school lunch programs, and funding transportation projects.
And in addition to the information that Jill's shared, this census, the message is clear. Illinois needs to make sure that we're all counted. our state faces the possibility of not just losing one, but up to 2 representatives in Congress. And that's why it's important that we do our part to help educate one another and ensure that everyone is counted in the right place.
So the next 60 days are going to be key. Right now, the census is, I'm sure you guys have already seen the commercials on TV, but the census is working to educate and inform as many residents as possible and encourage a self-response system. So SPAC's efforts alone have been focused on way to promote our self-response so we can actually do it ourselves. Data from the Census Bureau does indicate that Geneva did have a pretty high response rate in the 2010 census. So it's our hope that that'll happen again, especially with this the internet, which we'll be talking about as well. But we will, it's important to be, when you're home, to watch for that invitation to come because you are going to be invited shortly here to take the census in the coming weeks.
Let's just, as a point of clarification, what is a self-response, Jill?
Well, I'm glad you asked, Ben.
Wow.
Well, a self-response is you self-respond. So there's going to be, instead of taking up the census takers' time coming and knocking on the doors, we want to get as many of our residents that do it on their own. So whether or not it's through the internet, by phone, or by mail, those are all the different self-response ways that you can do so that the census takers aren't knocking on your door.
And again,
Come June.
that self-response is critical because that means that the census employees who are going to be out there later, that's one less house they have to go to try and make contact with. That's more time that they have to work with some of our hardest to reach populations, whether there might be a language barrier, whether it's helping with someone who might have a disability, whether it's helping someone who might have a unique living arrangement. Those are the areas where they need to focus that time to help ensure there's a complete and accurate count. So the more that we can do up front in a timely manner to go ahead and get that response in is critical to this effort.
Yeah, so the census does take place every 10 years. So again, this is it. So anyone after April 1st, born after April 1st, they're not getting counted until 2030. So again, it's important to get all this information in. And this one is different. It's unlike any of the other ones because we can respond online from the comfort of your own home. And again, it's only 9 questions, so it really should be done easily as long as, when you get the invitation, you take that. And it should be done as fast as it takes you to have a cup of coffee in the morning and fill it out.
Yeah. And we just wanted to show you, here's a look at what you can expect to see. This information will soon be posted to the city's website and made available. But again, just from a resident perspective, what you can expect to see. In the next 10 days or so, the U.S. Census Bureau is going to be working with the post office to start getting those responses or get those invitations out there. As you can imagine, they are sending something to every home in the United States, so that's going to be staggered, and you may get something before your neighbor or before your friends on the other side of town, but those are going to start hitting the mailboxes any day now. If you don't respond, this gives you a little bit of a path, a guide to what's ahead. They will be sending you reminder letters, reminder postcards to try and elicit that self-response before we get all the way to the end of April and those census workers start trying to hit the streets.
So when the invitations arrive, residents plan to include everyone who lives in your house on April 1st. So if you moved in on April 2nd, don't fill it out or fill out where you were living on April 1st. And it's also important that if you need assistance, there will be a number that you will receive in the mail so you can call with any assistance or any questions that you could possibly have. And it's going to be you'll be able to respond in over 13 different languages. So we really should be able to reach out to just about anybody. There should be no problems there.
Again, once you receive your invitation, responding is simple. It'll only take a few moments to complete your actual self-response for you and your household. And we should also mention, too, that anyone who maybe doesn't have reliable internet access or has a computer as old as mine and you need something that's a little faster or a little bit updated version of the internet browser on there, our good friends, our good neighbors next door have offered that anyone who comes in a library and says, I need to take the census, I need computer access, just need to let a staff member know and they'll make sure that they have access to a computer to complete the census.
So one of the most undercounted populations is children under the age of 5. So it was estimated that 1 million children under the age of 5 were missed in the last census. So it's really important to get those younger numbers out there. And especially in a situation like a custody situation where maybe mom has custody 50% of the time and dad has custody 50% of the time, communication is going to be key on who's going to fill it out so it doesn't get double counted or not counted at all. So the biggest thing that we can really drill is to communicate and make sure that everyone's counted correctly. And don't assume, never assume that someone is going to take it. So that's why the communication is so important.
Just to echo what Jill said, Again, that's the message, is don't assume children are being counted. Again, this is the one bite that we get at this, the one shot we get at getting the census right. So the results from this will impact children, impact funding for education, for schools for the next 10 years. So it's important to make sure those children get counted. And whatever the living situation is, and this information is out there in the Census Bureau's website, they encourage in all instances for caregivers to talk to each other and make sure that they're counted correctly, whether it's mom, dad, grandparents, another care provider, wherever the children are living, that's where they need to be counted in the right place. And there's information on our city's website, an FAQ section about this. But the important thing is to go to the census's website for any hard to answer questions, or if the answer is not readily apparent. The other population that we should talk about too here, and I'm just going to flip the page. Another key demographic is some of our seniors, some of our snowbirds. Believe it or not, despite how wonderful Geneva is, some of our residents do decide to migrate to warmer climates for part of the year. And that leaves that question that persists of, well, what about snowbirds? Where should I count? I'm a Geneva resident. I live in Illinois. I spend most of my time there, but I head to Florida, or I go catch spring training and spend some time in Arizona in late winter. For these situations, you should really give some thought to, where do I spend most of my time? Where do I spend most of my time sleeping, living? Where do I count as my residence? And if the answer is unclear, if you're truly living your life in two different places equally during the year, there's more information. Again, you should go to the census's website to try and help clarify the answers to some of these different and trickier questions or living arrangements that may not be as common.
So another message that we really want to stress, and I know a lot of people have a hard time believing it, but it is safe and secure. So it is illegal to share any of this information with any agency. The Census Bureau has to take an oath saying that they are not going to share this with anyone. Again, it's confidential, it's secure, and it's illegal to share any of it. So, and we know, and you're going to talk about the seniors. Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, a common question we've had when working with community groups, when attending these meetings, is especially the messages that are constantly shared with our senior population is be wary of scams, be aware of someone calling, be aware of responding to text, be wary of going online. Never give out your personal
information.
It's definitely something that's sitting out there, and so that's where the census is taking extra steps and making sure the message is clear, is that responding, getting your information, going online to the internet, your information is safe.
So in the weeks ahead, SPAC, along with several of our city partners, so the SPAC, city staff, schools, library, we're all going to be ramping up this whole thing to be able to partner up, and we are going to be visiting the Geneva High School in the coming weeks to get even more information out there. Luckily, we have a great student
member of our strategic plan advisory committee.
He's gonna help us head that up, during lunch hours and in the mornings. But we're also gonna be Ben's gonna go over and meet with the Citizens Police Academy, and we're also gonna put on a note in the utility bills very soon. I think soon.
Messaging will be going out in the city's utility bills.
Yep. So just a reminder, again, just so we can touch as many different people as possible, different ways, and we will be posting a census video in the coming weeks. We will be doing a video, and that will be up to your.
That'll be out there on
website, on the
Geneva
internet.
Broadcasting Network and on YouTube to
Yep.
billions of people across the world.
And we will be sharing that.
All right, but last but not least, we are inviting you and the community to pledge your support for a complete and accurate count. This digital pledge, which is found on the city's website, is simple and it takes just mere seconds to complete. Anyone who takes the pledge has the option to receive a census email reminder on April 1st. But again, we're putting the word out there, and it will be part of the city's communications in the month ahead, that residents, community members, and leaders throughout Geneva have the opportunity to take the pledge and help ensure that everyone counts in Geneva in 2020.
So when people ask how they can help, the answer is simple: count who lives in your house. Come April 1st, count everyone that lives in your house. Make sure everyone's counted. Share the information with family, friends, churches, moms groups, PTOs, schools, anyone that will listen. Put it on social media. If you see the city posted up on social media, just share it. You don't have to write anything about it, because usually the city's so good about teeing it up and having all the information we need. Just share it, and then just get the word out there to as many people as you can. So, if someone has a question, meet them for a cup of coffee. But most importantly, respond by April, so that way we can eliminate as many census takers having to come out as possible.
So while we've done our best to try and share some important information tonight and share some information that we hope you'll take back to your friends and neighbors and family, don't forget that there's over 300 million people living in the United States. Every living arrangement is unique, so we can't answer every single question, but the important thing is that there's information that's recently been published on the city's website, including FAQs, links to additional resources, and of course this pledge, which we've shown you here. And we think that'll help get people pointed in the right directions. And of course, myself, members of SPAC are always available to help try and troubleshoot it, questions people have. We've had other community partners like the League of Women Voters have stepped up to say they are passionate about this issue and happy to help with answer questions. And then again, as Jill alluded to, our other community partners, our other governmental partners will be sharing the message and sharing this information that's going out. But before we wrap up and before we take any questions, I did want to pause. And we had one video, which I think is 70 seconds here, and I think this helps answer a lot of important questions. And it's, again, something that we'll have shared in the city's social media feed here in the month ahead that you can share with your friends and neighbors. We are going to get that turned up concert level here.
Every 10 years, we get one shot, just one shot, to get counted.
So communities across Illinois get what they need to succeed.
For things like healthcare, childcare,
new roads, access to housing.
in Illinois, no matter who you are or where you're from,
Asegúrate hacerte contar en el censo del 2020.
Why be counted? Because the government uses the census to decide how much money the state needs.
For every person who doesn't get counted, we lose $1,400 a year coming to our state.
Why be counted? In 1950, Illinois had 24 representatives in Congress. Right now, we have 18.
And we'll lose more in Congress if we aren't all counted in 2020.
Fewer representatives means less support in Washington, D.C.
Everyone needs to be counted.
Everyone.
Children, grandparents,
Renters,
Folks just getting by.
Me.
and you.
It's just 9 questions, and you can complete it online, by mail or over the phone.
Everyone matters.
Everyone counts.
visit 2020census.gov and be counted.
So thank you for your time. Jill and I are happy to help answer any questions you may have while we're here.
Any questions or comments for Chairwoman Johnson or Mr. McCready? Alderman Bruno.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. This is very important stuff. I'm not sure in your workshop or webinar, they used to send out the randomized super detailed questionnaire. Is that still a thing? Do you know?
It's 9 questions. It's a 9-question.
Okay, so
yeah.
it's not like this.
No.
No one's getting the super long one.
That was the FBI, Mike, that you got.
It was obliquely answered, but my recollection is there was some concern about asking for citizenship on that. But I believe
that question will not be on there.
that was quashed, so there's no citizenship question. Thank you. Bye.
Anyone else on the dais? Alderman Ruby.
Thank you. I'm curious, with filling out the census, can people fill it out for other people? Like, could I fill it out for my mom, for example?
Tough question. I'd say if your mother has questions about taking the census, depending on living arrangements, again, I'd be happy to talk to you personally about that situation, see what information we have available. Depending on where she lives, she may already be counted as part of another count, or if she's more independent, then she may be receiving the information. But she doesn't necessarily have to go online. She does have the option of even just calling in.
Sure.
But again, we'd be happy to point out other resources that might be able to assist with that.
And I'm sure you can walk her through it. I mean, online, it's an option. I'm sure a lot of people will need assistance with,
Sure.
filling it out. So,
Okay.
I mean, you're not filling out your information if you're assisting her.
Okay.
They want to make sure everyone is counted, no matter what, so.
Okay. And then my other question, I'm just curious what your presentation to the high school students is. What's the,
Great question. So our
of that?
our StudGov group has said that they were willing to take this on and help educate other students in the high school about it.
Okay.
So they are going to be arranging with another social studies based club to have a presence there in one of the hallways and in the lunchroom at Geneva High School. So they're really stepping up to the plate for this one, making the arrangements with the school. Jill and I will be playing a supporting role as far as getting them some information.
Yeah,
but it's really an opportunity for them to share information with their fellow students.
They'll do it during like a PLC in the morning where they get the most volume of kids coming in like that in their lunch hours when they see the most kids, just to kind of get them there and educate them. Because there might be some, parents who don't know a whole lot about the census, and maybe their student goes to school and they learn something about it at lunch, and they're like, hey, you know that this is coming up, and the parents may not know. So that's why we're just trying to reach into every single group and demographic.
That would require the students to talk to their parents, though.
Yes, that would. I know. And yeah, so
Sure that we're-
again.
So the
We've
point of
heard
it
that
is,
happens on rare occasions.
Yeah.
the point of it is education. The students aren't going to be filling anything
No,
out.
no,
of
no,
the
no. It's just kind of
family.
touching different groups, different age demographics, just so everyone can get
Awareness.
Awareness,
Okay,
exactly.
perfect. Thank you.
Alderman Burghardt.
Thank you for the presentation. This is one of those things, because it is every 10 years, like my husband and I were like, we filled it out, right? Like, we don't remember, we must have just done it. Are there any concerns about any special concerns for 2020? I mean, when you're hearing from the census, do they think there's any special obstacles? Obviously, the internet's a big change that you can, from my understanding, you'll get like a postcard that'll have a unique ID on it, right?
So over 95% of Americans will receive or residents in the country will receive their invitation in the mail and be invited to participate online. But the Census Bureau has identified several hard-to-count populations, whether it's a language barrier, just lifestyle preference, communications preference, distrust of government in general, that make different pockets of the population harder to communicate with and harder to elicit that self-response from. So they have worked with different target groups, different communities to try and be at the forefront of that and get those groups made aware and address whatever concerns they have up front. So although we're talking about doing the census now, the first enumeration actually started in Alaska several weeks ago, and they're already out there on the ground working with different populations to start getting that count in.
Fascinating. And then, yeah, I could see with the data, like, in a way, we're also used to like sharing everything that we kind of, we give our lives over to Facebook sometimes. But then on the flip side, there's, like you said, this education of seniors to tell them, or all of us, be aware of a scam and stuff. So I
worry
could
about like
see.
robocalls, you worry about scams, you worry about people stealing your information for identity theft. I mean, it's all concerns, but I mean, we're really stressing that, they're not allowed to share any information. And our hope is that, nobody can get into the system. And it's a very secure system, so they can't get in and hack into the system and try to steal the information.
Well, it should be interesting. Thank you for your efforts. And like you said, important for all of us to, I really like the pledge. So like, that's something easy that all of us can do and
Yeah, and it takes
share.
it is, I don't know if anyone was able to take it, but it's literally, it takes 10 seconds. I sent some texts out to friends and told them to take it, but it's simple as an email and your name. So it just, so we can kind of hold people accountable.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm going to ask Alderman Kilberg, who's joining us by teleconference, if he has any questions or comments for our presenters.
No questions, Gilbert.
Yes, ma'am. Join us at the podium if you could, because we are recording this, and thank you very much.
I was particularly concerned about the seniors being undercounted. And so I asked a census worker, I said, if they say, gee, if you ask them, did you fill it out? And they say, gee, I don't remember. They said, fill it out again. We'll catch it. So don't worry.
Got it. I had one question for Mr. McCready and Ms. Johnson. I think it was Mrs. Johnson that referenced 1 million kids under 5.
Yes.
Is that just Illinois?
No.
Nationally.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Got a lot of work to do if that's the
Yeah, I was
case.
gonna say, holy.
So, no, but again, and with that situation, we are working with local preschools with the Geneva Early Learning Program, which is through the district. Kensington will reach out to like Kensington, Primrose. Again, those are our partners that we're relying on to get the information out there and touch as many people as they can, especially with that age group. Anybody, the preschools in Geneva, especially trying to get that age group really touched on, so.
Mayor, I just said one of the important statistics to remember when you think about that and the undercount of 1 million children is, I think in that video they quoted a figure for how much that means in state funding or in federal funding coming to the state every year. You think about what portion of that flows to our schools, and you think about 1 million children a year times 10 years, what that local impact has for other governmental institutions right here and elsewhere.
Good point. Anyone else? Thank you.
Well, again, just thank you for your time, and I would say, we're here presenting tonight, but there's been a lot of work done, whether it's from Jill, from SPAC, from members here in our audience, and of course, from the city's communication team. I want to thank Kevin Starr for his efforts to help get that information out there on social media and on the website, and many others who have helped contribute so far. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us here in the next 30 to 45,
we're ready
60
for
days,
it.
but
We're ready for it.
we're looking forward to a complete and accurate count here in Geneva. So thank you
Thank
for
you
your
guys.
time.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Turn this off. Okay.
Item 5, ladies and gentlemen, is the query about whether there's any amendments to the agenda. Are there any amendments this evening? Item 6 is the omnibus agenda. All items marked with an asterisk are considered to be routine by this council, can be considered upon and voted upon with one motion. Is there such a motion? Alderman McGowan makes the motion. Alderman Bruno makes the second. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
McGowan.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Bruno.
Aye.
Burkhart.
Aye.
Clements.
Aye.
Kilberg. I'm sorry. Gilbert. Ruby.
Aye.
Caven.
Aye.
Maladra.
Aye.
Marks.
The omnibus agenda passes with 10 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 0 absent. We skip down to item number 11, municipal bills for payment. We kindly ask our city clerk to please read the bills in their aggregate for our consideration.
Total bills for payment, $1,556,275.34.
Mayor, I move that we approve and pay the bills as read. The individual items that add up to that amount can be found in tonight's city council packet on the city website.
Alderman Bruno makes a motion to pay the bills as presented, which are also available on the city's website and in the council members' packets.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Ruby. Any questions at all? Any questions, Alderman Kilberg?
No questions, Gilbert.
Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Swanson.
Aye.
Bruno.
Aye.
Burkhart.
Aye.
Clements.
Aye.
Ruby.
Aye.
Caven.
Aye.
Kilberg.
Gilbert, aye.
Maladra.
Aye.
Marks.
Aye.
McGowan.
Aye.
Item number 11 passes with 10 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 0 absent. We skip down to Committee of the Whole, items of business. Item 12A is to approve Resolution Number 2020-14, authorizing execution of a farm lease with Pitstick Farms for a farm lease at a rate of $261 per tillable acre for the 2020 and 2021 crop season. Is there a motion? Motion by Alderman Marks, seconded by Alderman Clemens. This matter's on the table for any questions or comments. Ms. Dawkins, anything you want to offer? No? Okay. Any questions or comments from the dais first? Alderman Kilberg? Any questions or comments?
Gilbert moved to amend to a one-year lease for 2020.
Alderman Kilberg makes a motion to amend this request to a one-year lease instead of what is stated as a two-year lease. That amendment is on the floor, requires a second for debate and discussion.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Burkhart. The matter with respect to the amendment is now debatable. Any questions or comments regarding the amendment? Alderman Maladra.
I can see why amending the lease to, or amending the motion to a one-year lease would be attractive. It allows us some time to pursue some possible options that maybe we hadn't considered prior to this point. However, I also see a problem with doing that. Up to this point, this lessee, the Pitstick family has negotiated with the city in good faith. They responded to a request for a two-year lease. We've worked through the deals of that request for a two-year lease, and I think that to back out at this late point would be to make us not a good faith business partner. There are instances where I would consider doing that. If there was an emergency, if there was a problem, if the action we're about to take is going to cause us some kind of harm. But I don't see that here. I see that there are potential options. I think of the four options that Dean mentioned last week, 3 of them ended up being dead ends anyway. I just don't see the harm in going after alternatives after the current lease expires. Those alternatives will be there, perhaps more alternatives will be there, and we maintain our reputation as a good faith business partner. So that's my take on it.
Anyone else on the dais? Alderman Bruno?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think I share some of the same concerns. I empathize with the motion. I certainly share some of the same concerns as Alderman Maladra. I do envision different uses for that land. I don't think my envisioned uses could come to fruition in the time frame in a short time frame. So though I envision different uses, I'm not sure this 2-year lease would really get in the way of that. But I am somewhat conflicted. Thanks.
Anyone else from the dais? Alderman McGowan? No, excuse me, Alderman Caven. Forgive me.
Thank you. I know we had extensive discussion about this at our previous committee of the whole meeting, and I remember listening to this and definitely thinking that maybe 1 year would be something that would give the city a few more options 1 year out rather than waiting 2. But seeing some of the questions that were asked and some of the answers that were provided in the packet, earlier today, with several of those options not looking like they're even possible because it's with a municipality or with the city of Geneva, I would definitely be willing to explore additional uses for that land as well. But I think we've come this far, and we're already at the point where this is what the city had asked for, which was a 2-year proposal. So I know that I definitely personally had some questions about this a couple weeks ago, but and I would still like to look at what other options we may have, but I think that we can still take a look at those and institute whatever changes those would be after this 2 years is done. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Anyone else on the dais on the amendment, which was offered by Alderman Kilberg and seconded by Alderman Burghardt? Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I agree with a lot of what's being said by the other aldermen here tonight. It seems that there are plenty of people that would be open to exploring other alternatives for this land, but I personally, I don't think there's a sense of urgency to do that. I don't think we're getting into a bad deal here, that we're locking ourselves into a problem for 2 years. And, so again, I don't see the urgency to do it right now. And frankly, who knows, over the next 2 years, we might see even more options come available that don't exist today as people continue to look more towards conservancy. There might be more programs available us to explore. And I thought Alderman Maladra's points about the good faith, we put this advertisement out for a 2-year lease. We did this, we brought it to the table, we were ready to go. I'm not comfortable pulling that rug out without having a really good reason to do so. So for that reason, I'm going to be voting against this amendment.
Anyone else on the dais on the amendment? Alderman Kilberg, anything you'd like to add with respect to the amendment? Yes, sir.
Okay. No, I don't have anything to add. I just would question what the benefit of a 2-year lease is when we're at the lowest point over the last 5 or 6 years as it relates to the rent we're getting. I mean, we're locking ourselves in at the low. Even if you don't feel as though we would want to pursue any other options that are on the table as it relates to possible
Thank you, sir. On the amendment still, gentlemen, second time? Okay, we're going to go with Bruno, we're going to go with Clemens, and we're going to go with Maladra, in that order.
Thank you, Mayor, and this would be directed at council. So this, our reverting or bringing this back to a one-year lease would basically, I would think would void the agreement. They would have the option of just pulling out altogether.
Well, there is no agreement at this point. So the person that responded to the city's request would have the option not to go forward.
Right, even with a 1 year.
Correct, with a 1 year.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Clemens, then Alderman Maladra.
Thank you, Mayor. My assumption would be that the rate that we're getting per acre is directly tied to the current prices of the commodities that they're working with, which would be corn. Those prices have come down over all those years. That's why the rates are coming down. It's not because we're giving them a better deal. It's just tied to the economics of what they're doing. And, you know, I'm no expert in corn, but I've traded the futures plenty, and I can tell you that we don't know where those are going to be 2 years from now. I mean, we could be locking in a good rate today relative to what we're going to be seeing at the end of a 2-year term. I mean, I have no idea. Neither does the farmer, and, you know, nobody does. But we don't know which way it's going to go, so we're not necessarily locking in the lowest rate possible. We could actually be doing well at the end of 2 years compared to the general market. So we just don't know. But even so, even if we did have a crystal ball, I wouldn't want to pull this out from these people because I don't feel that would be the right thing to do.
Alderman Maladra.
So Alderman Clemens' point was my first point. We don't know if this is the low or if things are going to go lower. That's all speculation. And I think the second part is the advantage of a 2-year lease. You know, in this case, farming's not a one and done sort of deal. So the person with the lease in the first year knows that he has to do certain things, take care of the property in such a way that makes the second year profitable for him. So I think the 2-year lease in this case gives us, there's some incentive for stewardship that may not be there if it was a 1-year lease.
Anyone else on the dais? We've allowed several council members to speak twice. Alderman Kilberg, anything you'd like to add with respect to the amendment that's on the floor?
Kilburg, nothing to add.
On the amendment, ladies and gentlemen, a simple majority rules. When the clerk is available, we kindly ask him to take the roll. An aye means supportive of the amendment offered, which is to change the current draft agreement to a 1-year term instead of 2. A nay is to not support such a move.
This is only on the amendment.
This is only on the amendment.
Burkhart.
Aye.
Clements.
Nay.
Ruby.
Nay.
Caben.
Nay.
Kilburg.
Aye.
Maladra.
Nay.
Gilbert.
Marks.
Nay.
McGowan.
Nay.
Swanson.
Nay.
Bruno.
Aye.
Mr. Clerk, I believe the ayes are 3, the nays are 7.
Correct.
The amendment fails. We're back to the main motion, ladies and gentlemen. That is the 2-year term on the lease with Pitstick Farms, per the details shared earlier in the brief presentation. The motion was originally offered by Mr. Marks, seconded by Mr. Clemens. Any additional comment on the main motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would make a comment that under the state statute, the language is that the corporate authorities have the power to authorize a municipal officer to enter into a lease for up to 2 years. So on this motion, the mayor would be entitled to vote.
Okay. Questions or comments, ladies and gentlemen? Alderman Kilberg?
No question, Gilbert.
Mr. Clerk, when you're available, sir, please take the roll.
Clements.
Aye.
Ruby.
Aye.
Caben.
Aye.
Kilburg.
Gilbert, nay.
Maladra.
Aye.
Marks.
Aye.
McGowan.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Bruno.
Aye.
Burkhart.
Nay.
And I'll be happy to cast an aye vote as well, if you'll so permit me. That would take a corporate authority vote of 9 ayes, 3 noes.
2 noes.
2 noes, excuse me, the motion passes as presented. We skip down to, ladies and gentlemen, item 13, presentation of ordinances, petitions, resolutions, and bid awards. Item 13A is to consider approval of ordinance number 2020-09, amending Title 11, zoning, Chapter 2, Section 11-2-2, definitions of words and terms, Chapter 3, Section 11-3-3, accessory buildings and uses, and Chapter 15, Section 11-15-19, zoning illustrations, accessory structures of the Geneva City Code. Is there a motion to approve that soup
So moved.
stuff?
Second.
Bruno makes the motion and Marks makes the second. Questions or comments for either Mr. DeGroot, City Attorney, or City Administrator? From the dais first. All of you, yes, Alderman Burkhart.
I know I really want a summer house in my backyard now, so.
Yeah, isn't that exciting?
Yeah. I guess for Director DeGroot. So this is, I mean, basically a housekeeping measure. This is just one of those things we've never, these are these types of, I mean, I honestly was looking, I was like, oh, that's an arbor on the side of our house. Like, I didn't know the terminology for all these, so it's really trying to lay it out so we're all using common terminology and so that people can go to the code and find the answer instead of,
Well, that's correct. Over the years, we've had a lot of inquiries about pergolas or shade sails or gazebos or summer houses, and these terms aren't really defined or illustrated in the zoning ordinance. So we're just trying to lend some clarity to what they are and where they're permitted in the, the front yard, the backyard, what the setback requirements are.
is there any, was this pretty, I mean, was it pretty easy to, was it pretty unanimous, the decision of like, that's a side yard kind of thing, that's a street yard kind of thing?
Yeah, those aspects I think were. Some of the clarity we were trying to do is between what's a fence and what's a trellis. We've had some people try to use a trellis as a fence because it could be taller than the fence height limits. So just trying to keep consistent with other accessory structures that we currently allow and do define, and those height limitations. So trying to kind of match up with those other accessory uses you see.
Very good. And if someone disagreed with the, they wanted a pergola and it was going to be higher or in a location that it's not allowed, could they go through?
They could always
Zoning Board of
petition,
Appeals petition, yeah.
petition to amend the ordinance or seek a variation if it's an eligible variation request.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else from the dais? Alderman Kilberg, anything you'd like to add or questions asked?
Nothing to add. Gilbert.
Thank you. Item 13A, folks. Mr. Clerk, whenever you're ready, sir.
Ruby.
Aye.
Caven.
Aye.
Kilberg.
Aye. Gilbert.
Maladra.
Aye.
Marks.
Aye.
McGowan.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Bruno.
Aye.
Burkhart.
Aye.
Clements.
Aye.
Item 13A passes with 10 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 0 absent. We're on to item 13B, consider approval of resolution number 2020-20, approving a preliminary and final plat of subdivision for the first re-subdivision of Woodland. Our applicant is here tonight as well, Mr. Steve Berthow, correct? Yes, sir. Is there a motion? Motion by Alderman Swanson, seconded by Alderman Clemmons. Any questions or comments for either our Director of Community Development, Mr. DeGroot, our City Administrator, Ms. Dawkins, or if you'd like to hear from our applicant? Silence, huh? It's like Alderman Kilberg, anything you'd like to ask or?
Nothing to add. Gilbert.
Alderman Clemmons, you look poised.
I'm always ready to go.
Okay. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Caven.
Aye.
Kilberg.
Aye. Gilbert.
Maladra.
Aye.
Marks.
Aye.
McGowan.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Bruno.
Aye.
Burkhart.
Aye.
Clements.
Aye.
Ruby.
Aye.
Item 13B, ladies and gentlemen, passes with 10 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 0 absent. Item 13C, consider approval of resolution number 2020-21, authorizing the execution of a proposal from Huddleston McBride Land Drainage Services for Prairie Green Preserve drain tile repairs at a cost not to exceed $7,012 even. Is there a motion? Motion by McGowan,
Second.
seconded by Bruno. Questions or comments for, I believe it would be Mr. Babica or the city administrator? Alderman Kilberg, any questions or comments? We'll go to Aruba first. Okay. From the dais? Just for the record, this is to channel all the water toward St. Charles. This is the, I have to give up. Mr. Clerk, whenever you feel the passion, please take the roll.
Kilburg.
Yes, yay.
Maladra.
Aye.
Marks.
Aye.
McGowan.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Bruno.
Aye.
Burkhart.
Aye.
Clements.
Aye.
Ruby.
Aye.
Haven.
Aye.
The motion passes with 10 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 0 absent. Ladies and gentlemen, a motion to adjourn the city council meeting is in order. Alderman Marks makes the motion. All in favor of adjourning this council meeting, please say aye. Aye. We are adjourned, and we'll begin the committee of the whole meeting momentarily. Thank you, Alderman Kilberg. We're going to put you on mute for a second. Ladies and gentlemen, the committee of the whole meeting is called to order. Let the record show that all the aldermen are present tonight, and Alderman Kilberg is joining us via teleconference. The same rule applies to Alderman Kilberg. With respect to voting on any matters this evening, he will identify himself prior to casting his vote. With that, folks, we're going to begin with any new business or public comment from the audience. Dean, 300 people have just shown up. It's going to be a long night. Thanks for laughing, Frieders. Item 3, approve committee of the whole minutes from February 18, 2020. Is there a motion? Alderman Burkhart makes the motion.
Second.
Alderman Bruno makes the second. Any questions, any comments? The two Bs, Burkhart and Bruno. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed?
Kilburg, aye.
Item 4A, consider draft resolution authorizing the purchase of a squad car cameras from CDS Office Technologies for a total cost of project including installation not to exceed $69,788. Is there a motion? Motion by Marks. Seconded by McGowan. We kindly ask our city administrator to provide some opening remarks.
Sure. So the request this evening is for the purchase of 8 police squad video camera systems, which would include the cameras, associated equipment, software, and hardware, as provided for in the fiscal year 20 budget. There were 4 vendors that we evaluated, but only one vendor, CDS Office Technologies, was able to provide all the deliverables requested, including the hardware needed to download the video files. The Panasonic Arbitrator 360 in-car camera system, that sounds cool, includes software and warranty costs for 5 years, unlimited cloud-based storage for 1 year, and downloading hardware for the police facility at a price of $66,288 to be provided by CDS Office Technologies, the current bid holder on the State of Illinois master contract. Our existing vehicle outfitter, Ultra Strobe Communications, will install the cameras into the patrol vehicles for a cost not to exceed $3,500. We have Commander Frieders here this evening to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions or comments from the dais for the commander or the city administrator? Alderman Clements.
Thank you, Mayor. And if this isn't relevant, just tell me and I'll stop. My
relevant.
question is just, thank you, sir. This is just out of curiosity. So I assume that people can FOIA these videos. Is that correct?
They could.
Okay. And so
under certain circumstances, FOIA restricts certain things that are ongoing or open investigations. Those kind of things we can deny until after the court proceedings, but they would be open for FOIA. Yes.
Okay. But you'll have, there is control over what goes out, and we're not going to get inundated with, see, I don't want people to get stuck, spending countless hours reviewing countless hours of video, and I mean, is this going to cause an increase in administrative costs in all likelihood?
It
doesn't mean I'm going to support it, but
I
I'm
will,
just curious.
I will say to the FOIA issue, we're dangerously close to overwhelming our FOIA system. With the current workload that's coming in at the police department, I would say, we're really close to needing additional personnel to assist with that. In terms of what the squad car videos will generate, I don't think that will push us up over the edge over what we can handle in our capacity right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Alderman Bruno.
Thank you, Mayor. And I might have missed this in the packet, but are these on-demand videos, or are they just recording continually?
Good question. It functions in both ways. So the system is designed to always record on an internal memory card. So let's say the officer is out on patrol and they don't know that a crime has just occurred, and they're just driving, and then they get a dispatch. A vehicle description is given out. We could pull the the drive out of the squad car, look at the video, and see if it captured something in that kind of always on recording capacity. The system itself is set up to turn on by certain triggers, depending on how we want to set up the system. So when the lights go on, it can capture 15 seconds before the lights come on, a minute before the lights come on. It can trigger at a speed, how fast the patrol car is going, it could trigger it. And then it has a function where if the car is involved in a crash, then it can also trigger it as well. So there's a whole lot of things set up in the system.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Anyone else from the dais? Alderman Burkhart.
And thanks for being here, by the way.
Absolutely. I apologize, I don't have a great presentation like the census, but.
Do you have a song or nothing?
I don't have no song, no dance.
What is this designed to capture? I mean, would this be when a police officer pulls somebody over for speeding? Is it kind of what we see as those like a dashboard type approach?
Yes. It actually, if we wanted to, it could record 360 degrees around the car. There were certain departments we looked at where they had a camera in the front, a prisoner cam in the front, in the cage area where we transport people that are under arrest. They had a camera in the back and then 2 cameras on the side. So it literally had a bubble of coverage recording everything around the police car. Ours will be set up where we'll have 1 camera right before the rearview mirror that'll capture everything in the front that the officer does, which would be particularly beneficial for us for DUI enforcement. For those kind of cases, the state attorney's office is always looking for video that we currently don't have. And then that second camera gets mounted in that prisoner cage, so it will document anything that happens in that back seat area after we put someone in custody.
And then we have cloud storage for a year with this contract, is that right?
It's a 1-year unlimited storage, so no matter how much we send up, it's that set price.
And then we'll renegotiate that after a year or figure out where we go from there
On a
after
yearly
that?
basis, correct, yes.
Okay. Are there any union issues with the union contract with these cameras in our police?
No, and realistically, this is 1980s technology, just in more of a digitalized format. In the old days, it was a VHS tape that was in the trunk, and you'd have to change tapes after a shift. Now it's digital, but it's proven technology that's been around for decades.
Okay. And have we talked about body cameras here in Geneva?
We had a very short discussion about body cameras. To the FOIA question, body cameras take us to a whole nother level. So when you look at an officer's daily performance and what they do during a day, when they're in the police car, when those lights are activated, the traffic stops, those kind of things that are going to generate squad car videos is probably relatively small on a percentage basis. Maybe on a busy day, from 10 to 20% of their time is doing those kind of activities in a squad car. When you're talking about a squad or a body camera footage, we're capturing everything from the minute they walk in the door and they start on the clock until the minute they stop. And if we show up at a call, we have a general procedure. We kind of travel in pairs or at least packs. So if we go to, say, a domestic and there's 2 or 3 of us there, now there's not only 1 camera rolling there, there's 2, 3, 4 cameras that are rolling there that are all open to FOIA. So realistically, what most departments really struggle with in terms of body cameras is the ability to deal with the FOIA issue and how do you catalog and redact all those faces out of those videos and deal with those issues. So we didn't really look too in-depth into body cameras at this point.
Okay. And then back to the car videos, are those used for training purposes ever? I mean, do you go back and say like, okay, this is how you handled it, but this would be the best practice?
Absolutely, yeah. So when those officers are in field training, we can record those stops, let them watch the video, and then critique and let them see real time those things that they could improve on.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Anyone else from the dais? Alderman Kilberg, any questions, sir?
No questions.
Thank you, Commander.
Thank you.
We have a motion, ladies and gentlemen. We have a second. All in favor of item, 4A, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone, Alderman Kilberg says aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Item 4A passes with 10 affirmative votes, 0 absent, and 0 nay votes. Item 4B is to consider draft resolution awarding bid and authorizing execution of a contract with Mead Electric for fiscal year 2019 and fiscal year 2020. That doesn't even make sense. Excuse me, my fault. Fiscal year 2019-20, electric improvements contract in the amount of $95,279.37.
So moved.
Motion by Bruno. Seconded by Clemens. City Administrator Dawkins.
Okay, so staff reissued the bid for electric improvements in the block between 3rd Street, 4th Street, Hamilton Street, and State Street. Bids were opened on February 18th with a significantly lower price received this time than when previously bid in December of 2019. We received 2 bids. There were actually 5 contractors who attended the pre-bid meeting. 3 of those declined to bid, and 2 bids were received. The recommendation is to award the bid to Mead Electric in the amount of $95,279.37. And we have Electric Superintendent Hal Wright with us this evening if you have any additional questions.
Questions or comments for the Superintendent, Mr. Wright, or for the City Administrator, Ms. Dawkins? We'll begin with Alderman Kilberg. Any questions, sir?
No questions, Kilberg.
From the dais? Alderman Ruby.
Just a compliment on rejecting the original bid.
That was Hal saying thank you. That was, Any additional comments, questions? All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Kilberg, aye.
Kilberg, aye. The motion passes, 10 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 0 absent. I'd like to entertain a motion now, folks, to adjourn to closed session for the discussion on purchase, lease, or sale of real property for the use of the public body. Is there a motion? Motion by Alderman Marks.
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Swanson. Roll call votes in order. Mr. Clerk?
Bruno.
Aye.
Burkhart. Aye. Clemens.
Aye.
Ruby.
Aye.
David.
Aye.
Kilberg.
Kilberg, aye.
Elijah. Aye. Mark.
Aye.
McGowan.
Aye.
Munson.
Aye.
We are taking no action tonight. We will be back before St. Patty's Day.